Today's video is being sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay is one of the world's leaders in printed circuit board production, manufacturing, designing, and prototyping. All you do is just send them your project information, and PCBWay will design and print any quantity of circuit boards that you need. They will also place electronic components on the boards for you. The boards start at just $5 a piece. You can choose the PC board material, multiple layer boards up to 14 layers thick, and even flexible circuit boards. With their CNC, injection molding, and 3D printing services, they can also manufacture your entire project from inside to outside. Just go to PCBWay.com and register today to receive a $5 welcome bonus and more. So now, let's get busy. Okay, today we have a 50-inch plasma TV. The model number on this TV is a 50, P as in Paul, J as in John, 350-UB. So 50PJ350, and this TV was manufactured in 2010. And people always ask me, what's the difference between plasma TV and a regular LED or LED or LCD TV? And the main difference is plasma TVs do not use backlights. All right, the screen does prime up when you turn it on. It does light up a little bit, and then the pixels are addressed that way. If you have a problem where you're getting sound but no picture, okay, number one, you don't need a backlight checker on a plasma TV. You're not going to need it, right? And another hint is you're going to have to, the screen, like I said, the screen does light up or primes, they call primes. Turn all the lights down, okay? Make sure you're like, when I say all the lights, I mean you have to be like almost in a completely dark room, all right? And turn it on again, plug it in, and turn it on again. It clicks on but no picture. Make sure the screen is or is not lit up, because if the screen is lit up or primed but you don't have a picture or an image on the screen, it's a good chance you're gonna need a main board. Okay, that's from my experience. 90% of the time, if the screen is primed up, if it lights up, all right, if you can see like if you can see it light up a little bit or whatever, but you're not getting the image on the screen, just change the main board. The first board I would change. All right. Now another thing that's different about these TVs is, quite obviously, as you see through the glare of my camera and the TV screen, the TV's not on, the screen is made of glass. Okay? Other than the plastic substrate used by a regular LCD screen. So it's harder to crack. Alright, so the kids like throw something at the TV or whatever, a rubber ball or something, it's not gonna crack. And if the screen does crack, if it does have a little crack in it, it's not going to come on. The TV will not come on. All you're going to hear is like a motorboat sound. Blah, 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 blah. And look at the screen real good. And if you see like a crack in it, then it's just done for, right? Another thing is that the TV is actually heavier. They actually have like 3 power supply boards in these TVs, right? And I'll show you that when we open it up. These TVs consume a lot more power than an LCD TV because of all those boards in there. And the thickness of that plasma display panel, or PDP, consumes power, has more boards in it, and it gives off a lot of heat. So much heat, right? These TVs in the Midwest or here in Chicago are considered basement TVs, right? People usually put these in the basement when they get to the house, right? The plasma TV is always in the basement. Why? It produces that much heat. If you got a 60-inch, you're getting a heater and a TV all at once, right? I used to work for a warranty company back in 2008. and they sent me on a lot of calls where people were complaining about the TV getting hot when they walk up on it. It's producing heat. I guess they thought the TV was gonna catch on fire or something, but that's just a natural thing about plasma TVs. I'm pretty sure maybe that's why they stopped making them. The later ones they made, they were a little thinner. They didn't get as hot, but you can still feel the heat. All right. So if you ever notice on a plasma TV, you walk up to it, it gets warm. But let's see what this one is doing. So this one just clicks. That's it. And if I try to hit the power, you can hear it trying to come on, but it does not come on. All it does is click. Okay, I'm gonna give you a disclaimer or warning with this TV. The plasma TVs always have a metal back cover. Okay, not to say that some LCDs have a metal back cover also, but plasmas almost always have a metal back cover, and they will cut your hand, especially if you only got a few screws in it. Right, like say you've been checking it out, you put a few screws in it, and they want to move the TV. And as you can see, this same TV actually cut my hand from here all the way across to this finger, and it put a deep gash in there. So always use gloves, okay, when moving these TVs, especially if you're by yourself. So let's take this bad baby apart and see what the flizzux is going on. As you can see, a little different than LCD. All right, this is your plasma display panel up underneath. This whole metal thing up underneath these bars, okay? And this, of course, is your power supply board and your main board, just like on the LCD TV. But we have a few other ones, okay? We have a wire sustain board, which is always the board on your left if you're looking at the TV from the back. Okay, and these are the buffer boards, okay? And the board opposite of that one is the Z sustain board. Now, some brands call it Z, some brands call this X board. Zenith LG calls this the Z board, or Samsung might call it the X board. It doesn't matter as long as we know that this is always Y main, Y buffer boards, okay? And thus was responsible for sending electricity to light up those electrodes inside, or address the electrodes inside of the plasma display panel, okay, and to light the pixels up. So I have a logic board, okay, so this, of course, actually, or some people call this a video card or a digital board, but it is actually called a logic board, and this is what also helps address the buffer boards, the sustain boards. We also have some buffer boards on the bottom that you can't see up under this black case where this wire is going to, okay? All right, and that's, like I said, what actually addresses those pixels / electrodes inside of the plasma display panel, right between the two pieces of glass, okay? By my experience, about 80% of plasma TVs get failure from the Y main board, because under the most stress consumes the most power. These and the two buffer boards. You see one on top, one on the bottom. So newer plasmas just have the one long buffer board, and will give you a call, most likely, if you have a plasma TV with sound, but no picture when you turn it on, no flash, no, the screen's not priming or anything, it's just a black, totally black screen, and you get sound coming through the speakers. Most likely, your problem is gonna be between here, sometimes here, okay? But most of the time, if you get sound, your problem's gonna be coming from either this board, both of these boards, or either one of these buffer boards. If you have a bad buffer board that is shorted, you see when the chip's blown or whatever, you're going to have to replace the Y main board because it will do damage to the Y main board if you experience that problem with the bad buffer boards. Back in the days, a lot of companies would just replace 1, 2, 3, even if this problem was just on this board. But you can't get away with just replacing this board. There's a problem on most plasmas, or if this board by itself has a problem. Turn it on one more time, or plug it in, it should automatically start up. Okay, now pretty much on all plasmas, on back of the plasma display panel, there's a sticker, and these are the most important voltages that you need to check. Okay. Okay, VS, which is voltage sustain for the sustain boards, it's going to be around 200 volts, anywhere between 200, 198 to 210 volts. Okay, and your VA, voltage address boards, that's the voltage going to the bottom buffer boards, the one that I showed you that was covered up and with the black cover. That's usually around 60 volts on pretty much all plasma TVs. So those are the main voltages that you want to check. The first one to look for is any swollen capacitors, okay? And then obviously I'm going to check the fuses, but I know the fuses are good because I heard the TV actually trying to start up like, but doesn't matter. We still need to check those anyway. Okay, we know our AC fuse is good, and we want to check that because we got it's clicking and we heard it. So the fuse right here, that's good. Not short at the ground. And there's also a fuse here, okay, for our Substain boards. Another thing to check on these plasma TVs, on the power supply board, are any resistors, like these big 3 resistors right here. This is plug that is going from the power supply to the Y Substain board. And as you can see, there is a plug going from the Y board back over here to the Z board. Now, what I'm going to do before I start doing anything else, before I get ahead of myself, is there's also a fuse right here on the plug going to the Y main board. So let's just check that. That is good. Okay. Right. And I also see one on the Z board also. It's always by the plug, the main fuse, and that is good. I'm going to check for a short on the VS and the VA. As you can see, the plugs are labeled, and I think those test points, yeah, they have 2 test points right here. Okay, it looks like the 5 volts ground, VA, ground, VA, and these 2 here are VS. And make sure I'm going to go to ground. That's ground, okay. And I'm going to go to VS. There's no short. And so hold on, let's say that is really kind of low. And then the VA, there's no short, okay. It's actually saying 55. Let me put my meter and the diode check. Let's do that again. .05. Okay. Now, one more thing I'm going to check is I'm actually going to see if I can have any voltage coming up. I am going to put my meter in DC volts. I'm going to place my meter on VA. And I want to see if that's going to come up actually. I'm going to plug it in. No, it did not. VA did not come up. VS. The VS should be about 60 volts. The VS should be around 200. Gets about 1 volt, then shuts down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect this plug, go into my wire main board, and see if that voltage comes up. Okay, because if it does, that means we have a problem on the wire main board. Maybe, right? Let's plug it in again. That voltage actually came up to 206. And it says right there 206 on the sticker on the panel, okay? And VA, same thing. Should be coming on. 59, pretty much 60 volts, right? And we've almost pinpointed our problem pretty much that easily. Is because a lot of cases, power supply board will have one cable going to the Y sustain and one cable going to the Z sustain. But this is going through here and going back around, so I'm just gonna plug this cable back in. Probably gonna see a little spark. Okay, I'm gonna plug the cable back. I'm gonna unplug this cable going all the way to the Z board to eliminate that board being a possibility. Or I can just unplug it from right here, it doesn't matter. I got my Y board plugged back in, and I'm gonna plug it up. Nope, same thing. That's VA, let's go to VS, Substain. Nope. So the problem is, and once again, this is where our VA is going down to these boards right here. But on plasma TVs, rarely we have a problem with these boards down here at the bottom. I've never seen one. I feel like I have maybe one in my entire life of working on plasma TVs. Okay, and you can see we also have a plug going from here to the logic board. These are basically your small signals or high frequency signals to know which line to light the pixel up and all that kind of stuff. So for address purposes, what you have to actually do is look at your buffer board ICs and make sure none of those are burnt up or have holes in them. These ICs right here, all the way down. Check those ICs, they all look pretty good because they will burn. Just has the one cable right here going to the buffer boards from the Y main to the Y buffers, and that's the only connection. All right, so if you unplug these and you don't see any change, you can always make sure both of those are plugged back before you do this. Make sure your Y and Z or X board are plugged back into the power supply. Okay, you can also unplug this plug here, okay, coming from the logic board. All right, and while those other plugs are still plugged in, you can also see if the 200 volts comes up. If 200 volts comes up with this unplugged, then you know we still have a problem with the Y main board, just maybe in a different circuit. So I've got a capacitor here. Okay, that is not shorted, reading infinite. Definitely make sure that those are not shorted to ground. Okay. Same flavor on the board at the bottom. Check those caps by these chips. Okay. Make sure they're not shorted. It's a good sign. The buffer boards are okay. If I don't see any burns in them, all those caps are not shorted to ground. But what I'm going to do is, since my problem so far is leading to this board, and if you want, you can unplug this and do the same check over and over again, this plug going down here, but I highly doubt it, right? So I'm not even going to go through all that. I'm just going to unplug my board and start checking these FETs, okay, up under these heat sinks. You see how many screws are in here? All these screws are grounded. Make sure that you put all those screws. Do not miss one, because you could see some smoke when you fire it up. and do more damage, right? Or do damage to your new board that you're putting in. Make sure all those screws are in there. If you have to mark the board, mark the board, okay? If you have to count them, count them. This one uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe 17, I don't know. But just make sure there are no empty screw holes, especially where there's metal around it. As you can see, like these little metal tabs, that means that these screws are actually grounding the board to the chassis. Going from the logic board, just kind of wiggle that out. And then make sure that you do not bend the contacts, putting it back in. All right. And so I got everything unplugged. I'm just gonna, oh, and of course, let me unplug this one here. There are also some pico fuses down here, but those are probably okay. I'm not gonna worry about that for right now. All I know is that there's a problem here on the board. Specifically, we hope, we think. Okay, I got all my screws out. I'm just gonna double check, because there were so many screws, I'm gonna double check and make sure that I do actually have all the screws up before I start yanking up on the board. And a lot of times there's some sticky stuff up under here, so don't be, you know, kind of, there we go. See what I mean? Okay. So what I'm gonna do is start checking some of these FETs. And once again, beware of these capacitors. See how big they are, 250 volts. They do hold a charge, so being very careful. So I'm just gonna start checking some of these FETs. But I did find 3 that were reading shorted all the way around. And I'll just show you. You just want to confirm that this middle pin on each one of these FETs is not shorted to either one of the other 2 pins, because the other 2 pins in the back, the gate and the source might be shorted naturally, right? On that, some more again over there on that side, and there's some, obviously some more up here on this side, okay? Actually, these are diodes. Now that one is also reading, reading some shorts here too. On that one, also, that's reading short, that's reading short, that's reading short. Okay, also, this one's reading short to 1 pin, and that is reading short. And I can see why, because this pin right here, let's mark that in black, actually has bad solder connections on it. Look at that. All right. Could be a reason. Reading shorts on these 3 and on these right here, because there are some resistors that obviously go to the source pin, okay, that do burn up, change value, whatever. So, okay, so what I got is, I actually got Substain board, the wire Substain board, wire Substain, wide main, whatever, okay, and both of the buffer boards, okay, they all came in the package. It was less than like a 90 bucks, so we'll go ahead and put those in. Okay, so this is our new board. Obviously it's not new, it's used. So I just want to make sure that these same FETs aren't shorted. Touch my meter together to show you that it is on continuity. Nothing is shorted. And up under here, There's some I did check these other two here. These are fine, and I checked all the rest of them to make sure everything was okay. And I'm going to leave this plug unplugged, going from here to the buffer boards, okay? I'm gonna make sure this wide main board is good. So let's put the wide main board in. Like I said, I didn't see any shorts on the buffer boards. But the only reason I don't like taking those off is because when you put the other ones on, these connectors, sometimes you can damage those, taking them out, put them back on, and a lot of times, you have to put them in just right, because a lot of times you'll have a line going across the screen if it's just crooked by a millimeter, okay, or not all the way in. So I just want to do is just try this first, and I'm going to go to my my VA, okay, meters and DC volts. Everything else is plugged in, okay, coming from the power supply, coming from the wire man to the Z board, coming from the logic board, and also going to address boards. And this one is unplugged. These are DC volts. Let's see what we got. Let's plug it in. Good. 205 volts. I'm going to put it on what I have in beat mode. It doesn't really matter, but remember we want to have 55 ohms on the VS line. Okay, V Substain. Let's check it now. Am I doing this right? Well, actually, that is infinite. Okay. And we have some little capacitor charging up or down, and this one's also infinite. So yeah, that 55 ohms that we receive is infinite now. If I go to ohms, it's in ohms, okay? If I go to beep, same thing, okay? And if I go to diode scale, yeah, see what the resistance is now. Okay, so that 55 ohms we were getting, and then the 0.0 something we put on diode scale. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to chance it, okay, and I'm going to put it in, plug in my buffer boards, okay. Make sure it's pushed in all the way on both sides. Let's try it again. So I'm gonna be ready to unplug this just in case I see it go up and start fluctuating. I'm gonna pull this plug out. Okay, so double check, make sure everything is plugged in. Okay, it is staying on. Now these buffer ICs will eventually get warm. I just want to make sure they're not warm off the back. Okay, seems okay. So let me, carefully I'll take this out while it's on. Okay. Voila. Looks like we're good. Okay. That easy. That easy. Now, you see how much work we'd have to do to get all those resistors, get all those transistors off from one of those heat sinks. You know, unsolder those and then put the new ones under the bend the legs correctly. And I did it before, trust me. On these plasmas with these type of heat sinks on it, yeah, it's not worth it. Just go ahead and order the whole board, be done with it. Well, I know a lot of you guys like to save money and see just how technically inclined you are. If you can do it, that's cool. Yeah, go for it. Definitely go for it. You know what I'm saying? But it's all going to be the VS for Substain. Make sure there's no short on that VS line. Okay, it's the first thing you do. If there is, if it's made like this, unplug, isolate which board it is, unplug the board, plug it back in, plug the one back in, unplug that one, plug the other one back in, see where the short is at. Okay, if you don't read a short there, but we did get some low voltage there, so we almost had a short. Always do the voltage thing like I just did, same flavor, both boards, isolate them, whatever. Okay, and that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much how you fix about 80% of plasma television failures. Is going to be Substain board problems. I had one where the picture was like greenish, right? It was like wavy or whatever, and come to find out it was a logic board. Replaced that, and it worked just fine. Me and my buddy, who was the first company that worked on plasma TVs in Chicago, that worked on plasma TVs for residential use, home use. Fujitsu, okay, which used the Sony. Sony made the PDP panel for them, but that was back in, I'm going to say 2000, I think 2000, 2001. We had to go to all the way to Los Angeles because we were certified Fujitsu, authorized Fujitsu repair shop, and those TVs were like $5-10 grand back then. And they flew us all the way to Los Angeles, right? And we stayed one day, went to the class, the certification class. The next day was like all day. It was pretty cool. Met a lot of technicians from all over the country, and then came back. And yeah, we were authorized to work on Fujitsu televisions. And the only people that had those TVs were rich people, right? People with some money, right? This one guy had 2 of them in his house, right? He stayed in a condo on North Lakeshore Drive. Never forget that. Because when we left, because we always rode in 2, right? So both of us went up there because we got to take it off the wall or whatever. And the guy, after we left, the guy called the police and told the police that he had he was a baseball player too, played for the Cubs or White Sox, I forget. But he actually called the police after we left and said that we took one of his pieces of jewelry. I don't know what it was, whatever. So I didn't take anything. And looking at my buddy Jake, who rode the truck with me and stuff, he was like, oh man, he don't steal. So I already know, he drinks, he drinks and stuff like that. But he ain't the type of person that steals. So I know he didn't take nothing. I mean, houses that he done been in. The only thing he'd do be like, hey, can I use your bathroom? That's the first he'd take it going to customer's house and use it. The only thing he'd take is some toilet paper, use the bathroom. And so I get back to the shop. My buddy who owns the shop, he was like, hey, guy called me. He said, man, you take anything from that guy's house? I'm like, huh? What do you mean? Like what? I took one of his ink pens or something. I don't know. What do you mean? He said, the police want you to call him because he said that one of y'all took a piece of jewelry. And so I'm like, huh? And so when he asked my buddy Jake, and Jake was like, nah, man, I don't. Jake was like, nah, because he was an older cat, right? He was like, oh, man, come on, man, do crazy, right? And so I call the police, right? I'm quickly, right? I'm like, yeah, the guy said I stole something from him. First thing he said after he found out who I was, he said, oh, disregard that, the guy found it. Now, what does that tell you? Okay, right. 2 brothers come up there, we had to steal some shit. That don't even make sense, but. Okay, another thing I almost forgot to mention is that, like when you're changing the wired boards, you see how we got a little maldischarge or malpixelation right here, the red, and down here, okay? If you look on the back, usually I think it's either V set up or down. This one right here, this one or this one, I forget. Just mark it. So I got those marked, those controls. And because you don't want to turn, if you turn one of those too much, you could actually blow the board out. Let me see if there's this one right here. I believe it's this one right here. Nope, that's not it. Put that back where I marked it. Because this one And that one is, let's see. Yep, there it goes. And that one is this one right here. Just double check. Yep, that's it. As you can see, the little pixelation there is gone. All right, now this is over their TV, so it's probably not going to be perfect. But it is good enough. These have an absolutely amazing picture on them. Like I said, because they don't use backlight. All right, now watch when I plug it in, you're going to see the screen prime up, okay? So I want you to watch this. See that? That's the backlight right there, the actual screen. The screen is the actual backlight. And once the screen is lit, and then it's going to start showing you the pixels, and that's the backlight. So always check that we have a TV that's not coming on, and see if the screen is lighting up. Because if the screen is lighting up just like that, but no picture comes up, no picture, no display, no nothing, then there's always a good chance it could be the main board, okay?